Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new season of the All in Football Fantasy Premier League show and podcast, Season 4, Episode 108, with your self proclaimed FPL guru, Alex Rex. And joining me today are my usual suspects of Scott Williams and Barry Stokes. Barry, where in the world are you today?
I'm at home, all prepped and ready to either win a cup or a league. So yeah, I'm ready. I'm raring to go.
You need to get as many brags in as you possibly can do about winning a trophy every year before this season crashes and burns, don't you? What an incredible record. 2 cups and a league for Barry. Scott, how are you?
Yeah, good, good. Probably the highlight of the last couple of days was remembering my login to FPL. So logged in now, getting my head back on, getting rid of the Olympics, and getting all this juicy information lodged in there for another horrendous season.
You know what? As what I've got to say, for me, I've got to get the Euros out of the way, and then the Olympics was on, which I absolutely loved. So I felt I had to get all of that out of the way before I could truly concentrate on FPL. And I think I've spent the last, couple of days with the Olympics obviously ending as well yesterday, engrossed in FPL content, just really trying to get myself stuck into it. And I got to say that I think the community have outdone themselves this season. There has been some fantastic content out there. I love FPL Focal's pre-season guide. If you ever get the chance to have watch a 15-minute video, I think it is, go on FPL Focal's channel. I think he does a great job on there. Planet FPL has been up with the Correspondence Week, where they have a person on from every single club, a fan of every club for the Premier League, and they're always great podcasts. So, and there's a few more as well I want to shout. I think the latest episode of Black Box was excellent as well, if anyone wants to tune into those. But all of those are for people who are super keen. Our level is as high level as we can try and get. So we get all the information we need without being too in depth. And Scott had to rein us in on WhatsApp earlier because me and Barry could have come up with some graphics that would have had everyone squinting at the screen, I think. But no, it's been brilliant. I couldn't wait to get back. So thank you ever so much for joining us for season 4 of the All in Football Fantasy Premier League show and podcast. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms on Football Pod, on Football P, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, don't forget to give us 5 stars where you get your podcasts from. Subscribe to our channels and also give us a like on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's get it even farther and even wider this year. Thanks to everyone who's messaged me as well on Twitter and also, or X, I should say, and Instagram, asking when the pod's going to be back. It's here now. So we're obviously going to go through overview of the season, rule changes that have happened, initial drafts, and then we're going to have a look at some fun predictions. So let's get started. Overview of the season. I've got Lego Mane's graphic on the screen here. I'm actually going to scroll to our good friend Ben Krellin. One of the big changes this season, as we alluded to on the last podcast, was that the FA Cup will have its own exclusive weekends for when the action takes place, other than for the semi-finals. That's the only week that will clash with the league. Normally, the FA Cup quarterfinals has classically, for years and years and years, clashed with one of the game weeks in FPL, and that's given us our biggest blank and then given us our biggest double to follow. That is no more. So, as you can see here from this graphic, the red, which is game week 29, and the red in game week 34 are the only game weeks which are guaranteed blank game weeks. That's the Carabao Cup final and the FA Cup semi-finals. And then the guaranteed doubles are game week 33, which is likely to have the rescheduled fixture from the Carabao Cup final in, so it might be a really small double. And then game week 36, which is going to be the double which will have the most fixtures in. There'll be a maximum of 4 fixtures cancelled in game week 34, so it might have an extra 4 fixtures in 36. But that's really it for blanks and doubles, which gives us a really interesting dynamic when it turns into chip strategy. The other things to point out here are international break after game week 3, which is very early, and international break after game week 7, which is quite standard and quite normal. That's normally when the international break is that most people wildcard, and then one after game week 11, which is the second optimal wildcard strategy. Champions League starts after game week 4. So that's the general overview of the season. Baz, any takeaways from this? Any initial thoughts in your mind about changes in strategy before I go into a little bit about where I think the chips will be placed in a high level overview.
I guess you're thinking about your bench boost more, I think, because usually you do that on double game weeks, but with that, there's only going to be either minimal or maybe a slightly bigger one. There's not going to be a massive one like there was last time where me and you got them the wrong way around. We did our free hit and the bench boost the wrong way around, but that's just how the strategies play. But for me, that's the only take on it really at this moment in time. But obviously, maybe that might change further down the line. We don't know how the season pans out.
It makes it easier as well to navigate the blanks because they're going to be smaller and also probably slightly easier to plan for the doubles, but they probably have less impact. So my initial take on the chips was we'll probably have wildcard 1 will be either after game week 3, after game week 7, or after game week 11. So in game weeks 4, 8, or 12 will be the rough guide. I think we're looking at the second wildcard probably being either game week 30, 31, or 32 between the blank and the first double and the second blank, somewhere around there. Bench boosting 33 or 36, obviously. Free hitting 34 is probably the most likely if you're using it for covering blank game weeks. And then finally, the triple captain. It's kind of where it fits in. Now, I won't go through all the fixture permutations, but I have personally done it. And Haaland, Salah, and Son all in game week 33, as well as a Man United player, could work for a triple captain. And Palmer, Isak, and again, another Man United player could work for a triple captain in 36. So there are options there, but what I will say is none of those double game weeks make me go, oh my God, I must save my chip. They're amazing fixtures. I wouldn't be surprised if this year, especially if we see Ipswich looking weak against Liverpool in game week 1, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of people just stick it on Haaland in game week 2 with Ipswich at home. But let's and I think a single game week usage of the triple captainship will be a lot more common this year than ever done before. Scott, anything to add?
What I will say is, I think it's going to make leagues, your FPL leagues, a lot tighter because it's a bit, I would say for people like you two, it's not good news because people that plan the teams a lot more. You guys, especially towards the end of the season, you'll think, bloody hell, that person always finishes the season strong. Well, that's probably because they've been planning and they're into FPL. Whereas at the beginning of this season, you've not got through as much planning. Therefore, you see some people probably like me go towards the top of the league, which I have done in the past. So I think it's going to make leagues tighter, which is good for more casual FPL people. But we'll be interested to see if the cream still rises to the top.
Totally agree. You see always at the end of seasons, the players that pay more attention are the ones that rise towards the top at the end. So totally agree. Takes into the rule changes. So there's a couple of slightly smaller ones that we don't really know that much about and probably won't have that much impact, which are there's a mystery chip that comes into play after January. So we don't know what that is yet. So we'll wait and see and find out. There's a change to the bonus point structure. Now, Above Average FPL, who is a really good account, they've done a really good podcast on this going into ridiculous detail on how many points players would get less because of the BPS changes and how many points more others would get. The general consensus is that defenders will probably get less bonus points, and so will goalkeepers, and attackers will probably get a bit more. So that's the top and bottom of it for everybody. But if you want more detail, the Above Average FPL guys are the ones that go into some real detail. Anything to tell on that, Buzz?
No.
DPS? No. And the transfer banking is the big one. This is the big change. So what we will find now, normally what you could do is bank up to 2 free transfers, as everybody who probably listens to this podcast will know. What you can do now is you can bank up to 5 free transfers in a row. And I think one of the key things that I've been calling for ages to FPL Towers is that you can carry your free transfers through your wildcard and free hit. Now, normally when you wildcarded, if you had 2 free transfers, they went down to 1 again. So you lost your 2 free transfers. Whereas now you can roll them through. You don't get an extra one, but you can roll them through. So for the next game, let's say in game week 16, you have 2 free you wildcard and you have 2 free transfers in the bank. Going into game week 17, you'll still have 2 free transfers in the bank and you'll have wildcarded. So you won't go up to 3, but you can keep them. This is the big thing. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk about different strategies with this. I think there's going to be a lot of waiting and seeing. But Baz, have you had a chance to think about this at all?
Yeah, I was thinking about like banking 5 transfers, doing a wild card, and then use it like a semi-free hit team, and then doing 5 transfers after and getting rid of the players that I was only going to use for 1 game week. I think that's a potential option, depending on how the season goes, really.
Probably just see a lot more people, I think, just banking a transfer when they probably could have used one as just a different part of a different strategy. You know, like when you're going into the blank game week 29 or blank game week 34, some people might bank an extra transfer and save it so they can navigate that easy, you know, that sort of thing. Obviously, it'll appeal to the casuals that forget to log in for a few weeks. They'll have the free transfers left over. Scott, does it make a blind bit of difference to you, really, as how you think about it? Or is it, again, just a bit of a wait and see?
Yeah, I think it does make a big difference. To be fair, I know for me when I'm sat there with 2 free transfers, sometimes I'll maybe just do one for the sake of it because I know next week, I'll still have that flexibility as well. I think there's going to be occasions now where you think, that seems fine, that'll do. I'd rather sort of build up. I think the smart play is if you don't need to do one, try and build them up because how many times throughout the seasons have we sat and just gone, bloody hell, that person's just going to have to just sit on the bench until a wild card because I'm not taking if you've maybe a keeper, maybe you get an injury to a keeper early doors and you're like, well, I really don't want to take my keeper out. Well, now you can be more inclined to actually do a sub with the keeper. I've had in the past a 4 million defender, for instance, that yes, he was probably going to sit on my bench anyway, but there's occasions where I might have only had 10 players out then because he would have come on, maybe got a couple of points, blah, 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 where you can actually then rotate those players out. So I think it does aid to a bit more patience and having the extra transfer. I don't mind it. I'm not too passionate either way about it.
I agree with the patience. I think that's the key word. I think that's the key takeaway from it. And it'll aid to strategy plays by other people. I've heard a few people go, I'm setting up my game week 1 team so I can not make a transfer for the first 3 or 4 game weeks and keep those transfers back. And then, but we all know what's going to happen. There's going to be players that are going to come out of nowhere that no one saw coming, that everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon of, and no one's going to get it totally right. And actually making early transfers in the early game weeks to get ahead of the price changes is probably the only time in the season when it matters. Last season, it didn't matter. Palmer broke the game. A couple of other people broke the game, really. Whereas I think the pricing this season is quite competitive. I like it. So I think actually those 0.1s and 0.2s at the beginning of the season are actually going to make a difference this year. And this is changing my tune from last year. When I saw the pricing of last year, I didn't think that was the case. I thought the prices weren't going to be a big deal. And actually it proved that was the case. A couple of injuries helped that. But this season, I do think that making your transfers early is going to be key in the early weeks. So that's another takeaway. Let's get on to fixtures. Scott, when you first logged into FPL yesterday night, watching the Olympics closing ceremony as Team GB beat their medal record by 1. Which teams stood out to you initially? Which player did you immediately go, them, have to have them?
Well, the first thing I did is what you've got on the screen right now. First thing I did was get the FDR up, fixture difficulty rating on the screen. Makes it easy to digest who's got, air quotes, easier fixtures for the first few weeks. I think the first team, obviously, I knew City have a tricky first game. I already knew that away at Chelsea, and then got a nice run. So for me, I know there's been noise about getting Haaland in or not. I just wanted to get him in. I know it's a lot of money, but I want him in it anyway. I didn't want to fanny about and getting him in the second week. I back him to score. We know what that Chelsea team's been like last few seasons. So I did go to City straight away. And then I'll be honest, the next team I looked at straight away was Newcastle. And obviously 2 seasons ago, I had a really good season. I had a good run in the Champions League last season, and they finished the season really well. And with Isaac, they had one of the players of the season there. So I wanted to try and get a couple of Newcastle players in. So I think Isaac was the next player. So I went quite heavy. So I got like Haaland and Isaac straight away as my 2 strikers. I think last season I went without Isaac quite a lot, and it really punished me. I think, with that opening game against Southampton, who I think will struggle this season. I'm surprised they beat Leeds in the playoff final. I think they're going to struggle. So I think that's a really, eye-watering fixture to look at. And I think Gordon's still not bad value. So, got him in. Obviously had a good season last season. Didn't get the minutes at the Euros. So I guess we'll be quite fresh still. Should be quite fresh. So they were the two that I sort of went to straight away on that one. I did like the look of Spurs, but the way I've gone there, I couldn't get Sonny in. But I did want to get an asset in. And I thought Pedro Porro had a really good season. So they were the first three teams that I kind of looked at and was sort of drawn to straight away. I think if we were sat here and Crystal Palace still had Elise and Crystal Palace wasn't having big rumours that Eze was going and Mateta, by the way, going, and Mateta's not just played Olympic final a few days ago, I would have also been looking at Palace because I think they've got a really good start to the season there. But for those, I just didn't want to take too many gambles. I don't think Mateta's always, if he's playing, he's not had much rest. And, there's a lot of speculation around Eze still as well. So that was my initial take.
When you sat down, because I always think it's important. I think it's one of the most important moments, really, because those initial feelings that you get when you first look at them, those are some of the most important ones. What was your thoughts on any of these teams as well? I've put the Lego Mane graphic up here, by the way, which is great to look at on Twitter because it gives the fixture runs across the whole of the first half of the season.
So similar with Scott, I looked at Man City and obviously the fixture straight away for Haaland with Chelsea, and in pre-season he scored a hat-trick against them. So it's like I'm going to get Haaland for that reason. Isaac as well, got him in. Also, Liverpool fixtures are really good. We're unsure about obviously Arne Slot, how he's going to set up Liverpool, but they're unbeaten in pre-season friendlies. Salah's been looking sharp, so I've put him in my team as well, and that's near enough quarter of my budget right there gone.
Mm.
But I didn't want to have the fear factor of not having any of them free players, so I've gone my usual tactics and gone cheap at the back. Also, I like Villa's fixtures as well. They look quite nice as well. So if I didn't want to go for Isaac, I could have got Watkins maybe. But is he going to replicate that form, especially with Europe coming into the equation as well? And Chelsea's fixtures look good, but the unpredictability of Chelsea, it's hard to decide who's going to be number one, who's going to play in defence. So yeah, it's a wait and see on that front, especially after the Man City game. Then maybe join the bandwagon and be disappointed when Alex gets at Sterling or something like that.
Don't talk to me about Raheem. FPL Black Box did a table of the expected goals involvement against the bottom 6 versus the top 8, and Raheem Sterling's was the greatest difference by miles. I'm just like, it's just because he's a bully. He's so good against the bottom teams. I hope he makes it into the Chelsea lineup because honestly, for some of these fixtures, I'd have Sterling because he's gonna deliver against bad teams. I agree with you on the Liverpool side of things as well. Scott, my first person in was Haaland, and the main reason being Ipswich at home in game week 2. I mean, we all saw Chelsea game week 1, but oh my god, that's what we say at the same time. What's the score going to be in that game? 5-0, and because that's just how they roll at home. And Haaland's home forms are insane. So yeah, he was one of the first guys that was on my team sheet. I can understand why people have looked at him and gone, whatever, but because of the amount of money, is 15 million, but he'll be so good. The debate is obviously Haaland or Salah, but it is whether to have Salah or not, isn't it? And that's something that we will get into in a little bit. Baz, talk to us about your wonderful graphic that you've done on rotation, because we need to talk about goalkeepers.
Yeah, so it's quite weird how it worked out actually. I was looking at quite a few options, but this one was the best for the first 19 fixtures until obviously the second part of the season. So obviously Neto in goal and Hermansen for Leicester. They've got a great rotation. So game week 1 would be Bournemouth, then game week 2 for Leicester. The only problem with that is there's a lot of away fixtures there for them teams, but I would be quite happy with them pair, and it frees up some money as well, because if you're looking at other rotations, for example, Aston Villa, West Ham, you've got a 5 million goalkeeper and a 4.5. The only trouble fixture you've got is game week 13. Chelsea, Man U, but who's going to be number one for Chelsea? That's another difficult one. And game week 10 is the difficult fixture on that one. Everton, West Ham, game week 13 again is a tricky one for them too. And it's another 5 million and 4.5. Everton, Newcastle, 5 million keepers. And the problem is game week 18. So it's not too bad. It's quite further down the line. So that one could be a potential option, but there's 10 million worth of keepers right there. So it's a bit of a tricky one on that one. Fulham, Newcastle, 4.5 and a 5 million. Game week 18 again. So that could be a potential option. And then Fulham, Tottenham, 4.5 and a 5 million. And game week 15 is the issue going forward on that one as well. So, but how I looked at it, I think them pair good value and potential save points, because I don't think there's going to be hardly any clean sheets this season, especially with VAR and how the season panned out last season. So that's
my takeaways on that. So go on.
I was going to say there's going to be less stoppage time this season. I was reading, just doing a bit of research. I was reading the new some of the new rules that have come in, and the ref's only going to add stoppage time after goals if the celebration exceeds 30 seconds this season. So that should really condense the games down a lot more than they were last year, especially the start when we're getting 10, 12 minutes added on time.
Interesting. My takeaway from that, Baz, though, was that there are a lot of really good rotations within the first 7 to 11 game weeks. So if you're the key 2 times when people are going to be wildcarding are 8 and 12. So a lot of the times then you were saying game week 18 is difficult, game week 15 is difficult, in my opinion, I ain't got a Scooby-Doo what my team's going to be when it gets to game week 15 or game week 18. Like, who knows what's going to happen? But I think my takeaway from that was there's quite a lot of good rotations in there from the first 7 fixtures, let's just say, or 11. Which couple of teams did you think really stood out for you as having good rotations? We can talk about this. This relates to defenders or goalkeepers.
Chelsea, Newcastle had good rotation, but same again. It's tricky to pick who's going to start in goal for Chelsea. I probably think Sanchez is, because he's played most of them, but
Feels that way.
He's only just come in. Levi Colwell has played most of the game, so I think he's going to be a starter. Cucurella played really well in Euro, so he could start. Reece James is suspended, and also he's potentially picked up another injury.
He's pulled his hamstring. Yeah, I read that today.
Gusto is going to be a good shout for 5 million, but obviously how I've loaded my team, I think my 4.5 is my highest defender, so it will probably be Levi Colwell on that one. But yeah, there's multiple ones. I'll put a graphic up on socials and things like that, and I'll get it all sorted and have a look from game week 1 to 7, from game week 1 to 19, and I'll get it all loaded and everyone can have a good look at that.
Nice one, thanks, Baz. I think a couple of my rotations I liked were the Crystal Palace and Brentford fixtures. One of the reasons I like that as well, I think you get 6 home games out of first 7. I know there's a difficulty in game week 5. Palace have got Man United at home versus Brentford having Spurs away, but I'd probably go for the Man United at home fixture for Crystal Palace. They kept 4 out of 7 clean sheets at the back end of last season. So at that point, you are basically getting 7 home games from a couple of teams that look pretty decent at the back when everyone's fully fit. My debate is probably if I go for the Fleck and Henderson, because by the sounds of it, Johnston wants to leave and Matthews is going to be the backup keeper. My real decision is Flecken and Henderson, or just going for David Raya and a 4 million, or Allison and a 4 million. The predicted points on Fantasy Football Hub had the Flecken and Henderson combination getting 27.2 points over the first 7 fixtures, and the David Raya by himself getting 29.6. So good time to move on to defenders probably, because I think by the sounds of it, there's going to be minimal difference in there. Scott, anything on keepers before we move on to defenders?
Nope.
Defenders is interesting because when we have a look here, and I'll do it on the actual Fantasy Premier League site, and this is all done by price. There's only a real handful of defenders that are that expensive. There's only a group here of about 20 which are over 5 million. So there are a lot of options. I can't remember how many defenders I said there were about at 4.5 million. Was there 106 or something?
There's loads.
I mean, the amount of defensive options with the rotation that you talk about is key, but it's basically how many of these big boys that you want to pick from, isn't it? So we talk as compared to the smaller priced players. So Trent Alexander-Arnold's at 7 million. He did play in pre-season at right back. He's by far the most expensive. He only got 122 points last year. In terms of expected numbers, his XGI over the course of the season was 8.62, and he delivered 8 goal involvements. And that was the best out of every single person. I'm talking about XGI on this whole list above 5 million, except for Pedro Porro.
Oh, well, it would be Ben White.
Pedro Porro's expected goal involvement was 9.1, and he was involved in 11 goals. Ben White's XGI was only 4.93. So he's only expected to actually.
Though, didn't he?
That's the thing. He actually was involved in 9 goals, but his expected goal involvement was only 5. So he outperformed his numbers by quite a long way last year. And a lot of it came to those couple of game weeks together, didn't it? Another takeaway between Gabriel and Saliba, which is another thing that's quite interesting. I can't imagine they're going to break up White, Gabriel, and Saliba really as a 3 at the back, with probably Calafiore or whoever's Kivior or whoever's going to play at left back. But Gabriel got 1 more goal than Saliba last year, 3-2. Both got 1 assist each. But Gabriel's expected goal involvement was 5.13 compared to Saliba's 2.16. 2.6. But Saliba did start every single game 38 games, whereas Gabriel only started 34. So Saliba's the most nailed, but I think they're both pretty nailed, really, to be honest. Guardiola's got to be considered, even though his numbers weren't as impressive as I thought across the whole season. 6 goal involvements, but still pretty good. And I think I can't really imagine anyone going for Robertson because I think he's still got a knock. Simicast started the last friendly. And I've seen Van Dijk in a couple of experts teams, which kind of surprised me. I don't know if Trippier's leaving or not. And who knows who's going to start for City. Baz, your take on the expensive defenders? Who do you think's worth investing in, and who do you think we should stay well clear of?
I think it's just probably Arsenal and Porro. I think they're the only ones that I'd probably be looking at getting. Guardiola had a good end of the season. Man City just swap and change too much, so it's difficult to pick who's going to start. Is it going to be Ruben Dias and Stones? Is it going to be Kanji, Ake? You don't know. There's too many options. So for me, it would just be White, Gabriel, Saliba, and Porro would be the probably ones that I'd pick out of them.
Yeah, interesting. Guardiola's the one who sort of is on the edge for me, but then again in the Community Shield, Lewis was the one pushing into midfield, and Guardiola was playing further back. At least that was my take on the game. I was too busy watching Johnny Evans' Sky penalty. He stepped up to take the pen. I literally come through your window, mate. I literally left the room when he stepped up to take a pen. I'm like, this guy. Scott, your thoughts on premium defenders? Worth investing in or not?
I think a lesson I've learned in the past is just be mindful of new players. So I know sometimes I like to bed them in, especially depending on what time, how long ago big clubs signed them. So I know all those big list of defenders there we're looking at. There's only one, Calafiore, that's new to the Premier League this season. But I think out of all them, like you said, Saliba, Gabriel, White, they're going to start. Calafiore, probably 80-90% chance of starting, but might not be worth the gamble if you don't want to get him in your team early and he comes on for a point. It's not the best way to start. And then if someone who plays ahead of him, maybe like Timber, because I forget Timber is a great player. He obviously got the injury first game last season. I definitely had a draft. Cheers for that. So if he starts cracking, actually Calafiori might then struggle to get into the team for a few games. So just be wary of that, I would say. But other than that, yeah, I would agree. And yeah, Trippier, I'll just reiterate, there's a lot of speculation around him at the minute, so probably don't Trippier.
I think does not feel like Arteta wants to drop Gabriel. Do you not just get that feeling? Like I kind of constantly feel
Did it start
trying to
season,
look
didn't he?
yeah, I constantly feel like he's trying to look for an excuse to get rid of him. So he signed a left-sided centre back, which is where Gabriel plays, and then he's had like, well, I think he plays there anyway. He obviously dropped him to start last. He has Timber, who he started last season. Gabriel just still makes me a bit nervous as a pick. I haven't picked him because I still think Arteta for some reason doesn't want him. Yeah, so off the back of that, I think 5.5 for Pedro Porro was interesting. Any reasons we shouldn't go for Porro, Baz?
Just clean sheets. They're just too attacking with Ange. So, but obviously, what was it? How many goal involvements did he have? 11, was it, or something like that?
11 goal involvements. Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. But obviously, you got to look at Udogie as well on the other side. He looks really good as well. Good value. I think he's 5 million as well. Not really that much owned as well. So he would be obviously a very good shout because obviously he was out injured for a bit of the season. So if you wanted to save that 0.5 million, then Udogie would be a good shout.
he had 5 goal involvements in 28 starts, whereas Porro had 11 goal involvements in 35. So yeah, I mean Porro like sort of stands out, but he feels like that 0.5 is right, but Udogie's still a good good option, isn't he?
Porro takes set pieces if Madison doesn't, really. So
yeah, he certainly does. Let's get stuck into the slightly more discounted defenders. There's a couple of new signings in here. Maatsen is someone to be careful of, I think, because Digne started the last friendly for Villa from what I saw. The Chelsea defence looks a bit scary anyway, as always. Palace. So Mitchell Munoz. Munoz is somebody who as soon as the game opened, I wanted to see what his price was. I was really interested in that. 16 starts last year. Expected goal involvement of 2.5. He actually ended up getting 4 assists, no goals, but he would have had a goal if the guy in front of him hadn't scored the most blatant own goal ever. I can't remember who it was, but literally he was stood in front of him and took the ball off his toes to score. So it was very, very close. They only conceded 22 goals whilst he was there. Got 5 clean sheets in his 16 starts, so 1 in 3 when they're playing a back 5. Looks like they're going to set up with that back 5 again. I think Munoz is a good shout. Anderson 0.5 less is fair enough. Scott, impressed with Palace defensively, or as he said maybe at the beginning of the pod, are you staying clear of them because of the problems further forward in terms of Elise and Mateta, etc.?
No, that'd be saying well for Palace. Like I say, with Gahey potentially going to Newcastle as well. I think they've got some issues, some real issues at the minute with Palace. They obviously the manager came in last season and sort of he brought some new life into the club. That was a bit beaten down by Roy Hodgson, but yeah, I wouldn't. I don't like to look at clubs that have a lot of speculation around the players. I think they could start really unsettled. Obviously, we don't know that, but Brentford away, West Ham at home, Chelsea away, Leicester at home. It's not too bad of fixtures, but I wouldn't be looking at anyone above the 4.5.
Interesting, because I've got Munoz at the moment. Spoiler all that. Terrible shout. Let's get into 4.5s, Baz, before we talk about a little bit more about pre-season and players that have stood out and some new signings. You obviously did your rotations before. In terms of defensive structure, are you looking at putting 2 4.5s in there, 3 4.5s in there, 2 4.5s and a 4? Like how are you looking at structuring your defense?
So it's either 4 4.5s and a 4 million, or 3 4.5s and 2 4 millions. But I've worked out the potential best rotation is having a Newcastle, a Villa, an Everton, a Chelsea, and a Leicester, because I think they rotate really well for the first game week, from game week 1 to 7. It works out pretty well. You'd be starting game week 1, Newcastle, Villa, Everton. Game week 2, Newcastle, Chelsea, Leicester. Game week 3, Everton, Chelsea, Villa. game week 4, Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa, maybe even Leicester if you wanted to, and so on. So yeah, there's a lot of differentials there, and you've got 4 million starting defense with Leicester, Okoli, and Fayez, or West Fayez, or
Face.
whatever you pronounce
Face.
Faith, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, so there's quite a, and Barco at Brighton's obviously a very good one as well, potentially. He'd be starting at left back with Estupiñán injured. So yeah, there's literally loads to go from 4.5. It's hard to say, right, that one, and that one. You could look at Henry at Brentford, but then obviously have we been talking about Brentford and Palace with the keepers? Do you really want 2 Palace and 2 Brentford defenders, as you mentioned about Munoz? I don't think you'd be doubling up on that defence, either Brentford or
yeah.
Palace.
Yeah,
So
it's tough, that, isn't it?
it's a difficult one on that one. So yeah, that would be my take on that. I don't want to go too much in depth about 4.5 defenders because I could bore you for days about it. So,
But it's important looking at those the fixture rotation, because they are key moments in terms of who you're going to pick and who you're going to play, because you don't be wasting transfers on defenders at the beginning of the season. In your first 7 game weeks, let's just say, for example, you wildcard in game week 8, which I think is going to be the most common, which is why I keep referring back to it. So let's say you wildcard in game week 8. With your first 7 transfers, you don't want to be wasting them on swapping 4.5 mils around, do you? You want to get players in that start.
And that's the thing as well. I've seen a lot of people with Quansah at 4.5. I'm thinking, is it worth the gamble to put him in with Liverpool's fixtures going forward? I think it is, to be honest. It started quite a lot in there, and for me, I think he'd be the one that I'd be looking to get in to definitely.
The last friendly he started alongside Van Dijk in the Alisson, Van Dijk, Quansah, Tsimikas, Trent back 4, which will probably be this back 4 I'd have thought would start the season. So yeah, I think that's a fair shout. You don't want to be wasting transfers on 4.5s. In terms of the 4 million shouts, before we have a look at these, I think you've got Without Face. I listened to the podcast, The Black Box, with the guy who does Gaffer, which is the Championship Fantasy Premier League game on, and he seemed to think that Vestergaard was pretty nailed in the Leicester team. Yeah, so he thinks Cooper will play back 5 and 3 centre halves and play Face, Vestergaard, and that Akoli, with maybe James Justin. I don't know, left back, can't remember.
Yeah,
Christensen. So he thinks it'll be more like something like that, and he knows his stuff more than I do about Championship football. He plays fantasy football for the Championship, for God's sake, so he knows what he's talking about. So I think all of those 4 million options at Leicester could work. Taylor Howard Bellis seems like a good signing from Man City for Southampton. He's probably going to play at 4 mil. And then, like you've mentioned, Barco. I listened to Black Box, and Az from Black Box is a huge Brighton fan, and he said it 1,000 times on the podcast. He's gone, if you do one thing, start Barco. He takes set pieces. He's going to play every week. Don't faff about. Just get him in your team. And I mean, he's a Brighton fan, so surely he's right at that point.
Another 4 million as well is Johnson as well.
He's just moved from West Ham to
Ipswich. Yeah, I think he's obviously good. So yeah, good old Johnson.
Yeah, nice. You probably want to have max 2 4 mils in there, but definitely have one of those guys in there. And I thought they would have really, really helped. So let's do a little bit more about transfers that have come in, and maybe talk about them a little bit more in pre-season. So we've seen an interesting summer for Man City. Alvarez selling for 80-something million quid, which is absolutely incredible. Great player, but what a fee they've got from there. City look a little bit odd in terms of that midfield. Looks like Oscar Bobb's going to be playing out there, and they've signed Savinho. I've seen a lot of teams with Bob in, but they seem a bit. I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about any of that, really. Scott, any comments on City's business or Arsenal's, and Liverpool haven't done any business, have they? Any thoughts about those sort of top 3, and what do they need? What have they done? Who's going to play?
Yeah, I think isn't he? Who's I can see why he's gone, and fair play. Fair play to City. They don't seem to stand in players' way when they want to go. Obviously, they do get money for him as well. Let's be honest, they do. They don't go on a cheap. But yeah, Alvarez just, if he's such a solid player, he actually started quite a lot, especially towards the start of last season as well. So it's a bit of a surprising one, but obviously he wants to be the main man. He's a World Cup winner. He's won nearly everything in the game now. So he wants to be the main man at a club, and he's obviously not in that attacking lineup when you've got the robot that is Haaland up there. So I think he is a big loss. They always need someone like that. Going back a few years, definitely not on Alvarez's level, but when he had like Iheanacho coming in, he used to always do a job for City as well. So I do feel like we need one. So I do feel like
Jesus as well.
Jesus, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
11
think this
goals,
is a
11
big-
assists. For 11 goals, 11 assists for Alvarez last year in 31 starts of an expected goal involvement of 19.3. He got 22 involvements. Strong, isn't it?
Decent numbers, yeah. So we always say with Pep signings, the second season is usually the one where they come through. So here's looking at you, Matheus Nunes. Time to really step up as that attacking midfielder / false nine kind of player. So I think he could have a big part to play. I think they're going to need him to. They're signing for a lot of money. And then they are just a bit injury prone in those kind of wide attacking players. Like Doku gets injuries. We know what Grealish is like with injuries. So yeah, exactly.
He's injured. Yeah.
He's injured now. So like they've got a lot. So that's when you're potentially looking at your breakthrough stars. But City City are weird. They'll get an 80 million signing over the line in like 2 days. It'll come out of nowhere and they'll get it done.
They'll probably sign Kimmich and someone else.
Yeah, something like that. But I will say, I don't know Savio, I've never seen him play, but the noise around him is big. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. Liverpool, what can you say? Not brought anyone in. I'm surprised, when managers come from, I guess, lower leagues, as the Dutch league is, they do tend to kind of bring one or two of their old players that they can trust in. So I'm surprised we've not seen that.
Never happens. Never happens, mate. We just signed 2 more of them.
Yeah, I know. And they've probably seen how bad Man United have done it and gone, no, we'll stay away from that.
It's hilarious. Oh, brilliant. Sorry.
It is terrible. But they do it for a reason, because they know what they're like. They know what they're like in the training ground. They know they can trust them. So I'm surprised. But we've seen teams in before not move, not strengthen, and really struggle. I feel like when there's a new manager following one of the biggest managers that's ever been in your football club, back him a little bit. Give him some fresh blood to come into the team. So Liverpool is Liverpool. Underwhelming last season.
Can I ask you a bit more about Liverpool on this? Because I know it's not really FPL related, but I do think it's really important. So Man United after Ferguson went from 1st to 7th and obviously left kind of at a bit of a peak. But Everton lost Moyes, they went from 6th up to 5th. Arsenal lost Wenger, they went from 6th up to 5th. Like Klopp left now at Liverpool in 3rd. So has he left them basically? Like Ferguson almost felt like he had and Moyes didn't overstay his welcome, obviously. He got a job at Man United. Wenger sort of overstayed his welcome slightly and took it too far. Ferguson left where he knew he'd taken that team as far as he could. Do you feel like Klopp's leaving where like Ferguson is? Or do you feel like it's not the same as any of them? And the Salah, Van Dijk, Trent all having 1 year left on their contracts and not signing. Do you think Liverpool have a problem here, or do you think actually it's not that much of a big deal because they can't sign anyone?
I think it's close. It's similar situation to Fergie. I don't think it's as extreme situation as Fergie, can't speak. But yeah, let's remember how much noise around Salah there was last summer. It was almost gone. There's obviously been not so much this summer, to be fair, but there's been noise around Trent going to Real Madrid. There's been a lot of noise around that this summer. So he's probably looked at that and gone, do I really want to, if I lose Salah, if I lose Trent, which could easily happen, I've got the bare bones of my Champions League winning team here. So I think he's looked at that, certainly. I think you'd be stupid not to. I think for Liverpool this season, top 4 is a good season for him. New manager comes in, little decent run in the cups as well. Maybe pick up a League Cup and a champion top 4 position. It'll be a good season for them. But yeah, I think it's played a part. It'd be interesting to see Salah, like you said. He's been flying a bit in pre-season. he had a quiet season for him last season. I think he was still like third in the top goal scorer.
It was ridiculous still.
Yeah, and it was a crap season for him. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes, and with the different sort of, because attacking wise, they've got 6 world class attackers up there really that they can sort of interchange at any point. If they can keep them fit, they can do well. Gakpo, we all thought was having a bit of a struggle, and then he had a really good end to last season. Did all right at the Euros, so they've got the players. It just be interesting. They've got to be patient with it. I'm sure. I hope Liverpool fans are, unlike Man United fans when Moyes didn't get given the time. So I do hope they are. But yeah, be interesting. And then finally, just touch. You say Arsenal last one. Calafiori, good signing. Probably Italian's best player at the Euros in a really underwhelming Italian team. He looks decent. They look. The best defence in the league just got stronger, and with Timber coming back as well, I think they're really solid at the back. And we all know what they can do at top. I expect a bit more from Martinelli this season. He looked good when he first came back in, so look for him to do a bit better. And Jesus as well, for me, just needs to score more when he does play. But yeah, I think probably looking ahead a little bit, but City and Arsenal quite far on paper ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, it feels strange because then like Villa have strengthened well. Spurs have obviously now strengthened well, in particular with Solanke's signing. Chelsea have signed everyone that breeds, I think.
That's goalkeeper.
They were fine, but yeah. And Newcastle, do Newcastle have that much business? I don't think so. Man United are signing everyone that Ten Hag's ever worked with. West Ham have had a really good transfer window, it feels
I was
like.
going to mention that. They've won, at the moment, they've won the transfer window at the moment.
I think them and Fulham, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting with Fulham. So the reason why I agree, but I go with West Ham versus just Paulinho leaving. That's the only reason why. I know they lost another centre half, was it Tosin as well? But I think just the Paulinho. I think that I know Ream's gone, but I think Ream needed to leave. But I just feel like that Paulinho player, Smith Rowe's not that replacement. I feel like they need to replace him, and then yeah. Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with that. And yeah, Palace need to sign somebody as well. We've seen some players like in pre-season, just touch on some pre-season numbers again. I know Morgan Rogers has had a really good pre-season for Aston Villa at 5 million as an asset. He's played most minutes out of anybody. Wally Watkins hasn't kicked a ball yet. So that's something to pay attention to when it comes to game week 1, because they do have Archer and Duran, I think. Duran's still there, isn't he? I think he's still... Yeah, he's still there. He was going to go, wasn't he? But I think he's still there. Yeah. And the other players have had decent pre-seasons. Just going to go down and say Barker Minter, who Brighton have signed from Newcastle as a central midfielder at 5.5. He's had a good pre-season as well. And Smith Rowe started off well from Arsenal going to Fulham. So there's a few good signs there from those guys. Let's do the premium midfield chat. Because we've got the group at the top, which I'm going to get onto here. This sort of Salah, Palmer, and we'll zoom in on this a little bit. We've got Salah, Palmer, Saka, Son, all of the guys are above 10 mil, and then De Bruyne and Foden just in behind. My initial take on this was Foden's cheap. I thought he'd absolutely be 10.5 or 10 to 10.5. I know Palmer's only had one amazing season, and I know he had, was it 9 penalties? But I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
decent chunk of penalties. So this is the Bruno Fernandes effect a little bit with Palmer with the goals, because he went up to this sort of level. Bruno was 12.5, I think, at one point. But it felt to me as if like they've grouped these guys together. Like I think Foden's quite cheap. I felt like De Bruyne might have gone down a little bit more. I can't remember at the same price, but what do we think about these guys? How many of these guys do we need? Do we need to have one of them? Do we need to have 2 of them? What do you think, Baz?
I'd suggest probably 2. I'll go through the season. Chelsea's obviously got some good fixtures in the first 7. So have Tottenham. And the problem is obviously Solanke coming in, Son will be moved to his favourable left wing. Is he going to provide the goods? So Salah for me is definite. I've said that from at the start of the pod. Foden's probably going to miss the first game week, so you probably could get him later on. So yeah, but De Bruyne, I think he's going to be in and out of the team. I think Foden would be the star man for him at this moment in time for City. So for me, that's why I've taken it. Probably two. Arsenal's fixtures aren't great at the start of the season, so Saka is probably going to be later down the season unless he starts off brilliantly. But same again, has he played any preseason games yet for Arsenal?
Saka came on in the last one.
Yeah, so he might still be a bit jaded, but yeah,
He's going to get started, though, isn't he? I mean, when you look, because Arteta like flogs him, doesn't he? He plays him every game. So like Salah, well, obviously is nailed and will start. Palmer has only come off the bench once in pre-season. I'm just a bit doubt about Chelsea just to start the season and what system they're going to play a little bit and whatever else. And I don't know what Maresca's. I don't know how he found. I mean, literally, I think he probably feels like he's won the lottery. That lad, to be honest. I think he's woken up one morning, thought I'm going to get paid £10 million to do half a season's worth of work and then get fired before Christmas. Saka will play every minute of every game probably until he can't walk anymore, and then he'll still play. Son will play, and I thought Son with a striker is better than Son with a Son with a striker is better than Son with a false nine, but Son as a striker is even better. It's sort of weird, isn't it?
My take on it as well is between 7.5 and 7 million, there's a lot of midfielders that are really good mid range.
Yeah.
And then there's still some good ones at budget as well, 5.5, 5 millions. So there's a lot of variation there in midfielders, and they score majority of the most of your points anyway, especially going from previous seasons. So
De Bruyne being the same price as Foden makes De Bruyne not an option, in my opinion. And then, I'm kind of waiting on seeing on a couple of these other guys. It's just, can I get Salah in my team or not? And I won't give away where my draft's at currently. Ødegaard is 1.5 cheaper than Saka, which is probably about right. Bruno at 8.5 is in a nice price. I think it's an interesting price. And then, like you say, Baz, let's discuss this list, because as we talk about every year, this sort of group of players here is where the majority of your transfers are normally spent. So Ødegaard, Fernandes, 8.5 each, bit higher up. Then you've got Jota, Diaz, Gordon, Maddison, and Bowen, all at 7.5. Then at 7, Martinelli, Trossard, and Bumo, flat track bully Raheem, Eze, and Rashi. So you never know what Rashi you're going to get. Obviously, is Sterling going to play, and which one between Martinelli and Trossard is going to nail that down. But the rest of them, I mean, you could have basically any of them, couldn't you? In your team,
you could have a midfield of that if you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, you really could. It's a quality guy. Scott, out of this lot here, who sticks out as you? Who sticks out to you as the guy? If you could have one player from this price point, this 8.5 to 7, who would you go for? Number one and maybe a number two.
Number one would be Gordon.
Yeah.
And number two would be Bruno Fernandes. Just
Baz?
Gordon number one, and Eze.
It's interesting because I think that I probably agree with you with the first two fixtures for Gordon, and it's a bit boring, but I think he's probably number one on there. But Jota for me has been overlooked in my opinion. He's my guy. I think he's playing up front for Liverpool in the pre-season friendlies. He's super clinical. He had 10 goals and 7 assists in 14 starts last season off an XGI of 7. He had 17 goal involvements off an XG of 7. I just feel like if Jota was going to play every game, 10 goals and 7 assists, not 14 goals. Yeah, 10 goals, 7 assists and 14. I feel like he should just play all the time. So yeah, probably Gordon and then Jota for me. Baz, talk to me about 6.5, this 6.5 million bracket, and a couple of the players beneath. Who sticks out to you as amazing value in here?
If Matoma can recreate his form when he first came, he'd be a good signing. Madueke, I'm worried because Neto's just signed. Nkunku, though, would be a great shout if he can replicate his form that he did for Leipzig. Ismail Sarr, but I don't think he suits the Palaces. And I like Doku. He just lights up the pitch when he comes on with his electric pace, and he just tears defenders a new one. So, and obviously, my team name Cheesy Ganachos. So I think he's going to be. He looked good in Community Shield. So yeah, I think there's plenty more. I could keep going on. I could talk about my man Johnson.
Yeah.
Bruno Guimaraes as well. Is he going to stay though? That's the only problem. So yeah, I could go on for days,
I mean,
like I could with the 4.5 midfielders, 4.5 defenders. So yeah,
no, it's Bailey, Szoboszlai, Gibbs White, Kulusevski. There's loads. Bernardo obviously scored in Community Shield. There's loads of 6.5s this year. I think with the fixtures, and let's just flick back to the fixtures to start the season. Someone like Doku, if Grealish is injured, I think could be a really underrated shout. I don't see him in any teams. He for the first 4 game weeks here, if Grealish is injured for all those 4 weeks, they don't have Champions League. He could play in all of those games, and especially in that home game against Ipswich, could be fantastic. So Boslai's playing the most advanced in midfield out of Liverpool. Villa have got a decent start to the season. Bailey looks good as well as Rodgers, obviously he's a bit cheaper. I will be unsure on the minutes of Kulu and Johnson, just out of pure fear. So I'm not sure about them. Neto coming in to replace Madueke is a big one, because Neto's a good player. So that could definitely happen. There's those, and I think Garnacho is going to be nailed for Man United. I really like Garnacho as a pick this year, but I'm obviously biased. So there's loads in that group there that could make a difference. Scott, anyone really stick out to you before we just have a look at the real cheapies?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because there's that many out there. You can throw a blanket over them. I think with the 5 subs rule, it means you can make movement is going to be a lot easier this year. You know, if someone like a Savio absolutely hits the ground running, you can move it in quite quickly. I think there's just going to be lots and lots of scope for it. But yeah, one that caught my eye a bit further down, and now we're going to touch on the sort of 6s and the 5.5s. One that I'm interested to see how he does, probably because we live in Leeds, but Somerville for West Ham. That'll be an interesting one to see how he goes. Obviously not the easiest fixtures at the start of the season, and then Ross Barkley, he shone in a lot weaker team last season. Obviously, he's probably going to get a few less minutes this season for Aston Villa, but certainly one to keep an eye on at 5.5 million there. Not one to gamble on straight away. Want to see how many minutes he gets and whatnot. But if he can pull the strings and if he starts linking up well with Ollie Watkins, I know he says Watkins hasn't played a lot in pre-season, but if he starts threading Watkins in, he'll be one. Certainly, I'll be looking at as well.
It's key, like you said, Scott, I think, to jump on these guys when you can, and to have a team structure that makes sense. And this is where a lot of the value will be this year again in the cheaper midfielders. So we're seeing a lot more people spending a lot more money up front and still investing at the back. Seems to be a lot less options. So many up here.
And the thing is right, that this price for a reason, because they go in spells. Other than Palmer last season, who obviously was this similar price and then rocketed, they do it in spells. So you might look at someone and go, "Oh, I'll give it a couple of weeks, see how it gets on." You can't for these. You've got to move on them because 3 or 4 weeks later it's too late.
One of the tips, sorry, Brad, before I come to you on this one, one of the tips that gets given every single year is you can't win FPL in game week 1 through 4, but 1 through 7, let's just say. But take it from me, and not this season, but the season before, you can lose it. So that's not, there's loads of gambles on players like Bob and Ahmad and Minte, who probably will play, to be fair. But Callum Hudson-Odoi and Kunku, is he proven or not? There's lots of these players that I see people going for, and I'm like, okay, I think Kunku kind of fair enough. But, let's pick players that are going to play, I think, to start with. And also, a bandwagon is a bandwagon for a reason. Generally, it's because they're doing really well. They're probably quite good picks. So I think having players in this price point is more important, so you can move around quite easily rather than trying to predict who's going to do amazing with your crystal ball. Because let's be honest, you're probably going to get it wrong. If you manage to get it right, then I'd like the lottery numbers, please. So yeah, Barry, I just want to touch on cheap midfielders before we talk about strikers.
Um,
Cheapies.
cheapy. How cheap?
Links,
5 million, 5.5.
5 million or less, really. I mean, touch on a 5.5 if I think I've missed anybody, but I'm talking your Rodgers,
Yeah, I think Rogers, Smith Rowe, and Hudson-Odoi for me. I haven't really looked at the 4.5 because they're more your defensive-minded midfielders. I've seen quite a few winks in there, but yeah, that's nothing really screaming out. Saying, "I need him. He's 5 million. He's going to be my differential." But no,
One of my things I will say is that I've seen a lot of Emil Smith Rowes. I think Pereira's still on pens and a lot of set pieces, and they're the same price. And I think he's going to be playing in the 10 role, and Smith Rowe's going to be playing more on the left. I think so. I think personally Pereira is a better pick than Smith Rowe, personally, but I think that's an unpopular opinion. You know what's through, Scott?
So I've just taken Smith out now.
put Pereira in.
Hey, listen, I think it's an unpopular opinion that most people are definitely backing Smith Rowe over. So there you go.
I just disagree on your opinion, but that's why it's unpopular.
Exactly. Strikers. So Haaland and Isak were straight in my team. Is there an argument to go without Erling, Barry?
There is, because you can spread your money elsewhere, but where else are you going to spread it? We've talked about how budget midfielders can be, and 7.5s and 7 million midfielders. There's quite a lot. Are you going to have 3 premiums in midfield, or are you going to have a premium defense where there's hardly going to be any clean sheets in my eyes? So yeah, I'd rather spend that 15 million and have Haaland.
And it's just his fixtures, man. When you look at the captaincy matrix, and you look at the fixtures for him, captain him away at Chelsea, I wouldn't be against it. I think there are better options, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Ipswich at home, West Ham away, Brentford at home. Happy with all of those. Arsenal and West and Newcastle, maybe not. But then Fulham at home, and well, all of these next ones up until game week 13. You're happy with him being your captain. Like, there are other options, but in terms of the way the matrix works, it's one of the reasons why I'm thinking of just going for Haaland and no Salah. Is because I think game week 1. I mean, we'll get on this in a bit, but I think Isak's a more than fine captain. And then I don't see a game week a captain Salah until game week 5, maybe, from what I can remember of the fixtures. Let me have a quick look at those. Scotty boy, Haaland was your game week 5 for Bournemouth at home. Scotty, your take on the strikers, was that pretty easy? Haaland, Isak in, and then just looking for a third?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I couldn't turn away from Isaac's form and fixtures this season, so it was pretty easy to get him in. Not if Haaland had a bit of a up and down pre-season, if he's had maybe a few knocks, absolutely go about him. I think the game is so much better this year already, by the way, because we've actually got to think about our money this year. So I think that just makes it a lot better. There's going to be more swings as well. And then for me, once I've got them 2 in, the 2 out of the 3 most expensive strikers on the game, well, I want to go a bit further down. I'm missing all my 8.5s, my 8s, my 7s at that point, and I want to try and get someone in a bit cheaper. That's what my mindset was. Especially when you say Watkins is not playing in pre-season. Mateta ended the season well, but only about 4 days ago, he was playing in the Euros final, Olympics final, and played a lot of minutes during that as well. So he wouldn't be one I'd be looking at getting in anyway. And maybe a little bit overpriced at 7.5. I know he had a good season, but it's still Palace, and I'm hammering Palace, and they're going to turn around and do like top 7. But I really think they're going to struggle. Darwin's Darwin, Gakpo's Gakpo, Jesus doesn't score. The only one that I'm interested to see is Solanke. I'm really interested. I backed him a few years ago. I really liked him. So
is he a wait and see, or is he get on him?
I personally think he's a wait and see for now, because of the reason I gave earlier. Not all new signings just walk into a team on the first game and play. So actually, if you've got him starting there and he plays 10 minutes against Leicester, you're kicking yourself when you could have had an Isaac in or someone like that. You don't know how he's going to play. He's not had the whole preseason. What's he been there a week? Like he's an absolute wait and see, but maybe a bit of a less wait and see than any others because he's got a lot of Premier League experience now. But he's an interesting one. I think obviously I think the money's too much for him. I don't think he's that good, but whatever, we ain't paying it. I think he's going to be interesting to see how he goes on. See, for anyone that doesn't remember, he was at Liverpool, and then he's gone away, and he's kind of rebuilt his career a little bit. You know, smashed the back doors out of the Championship, and then it was really his breakthrough Premier League season last season. It was so impressive. So he's a wait and see, but probably not be waiting that long. Couple of easy fixtures for Spurs to start the season, couple of tough ones, but game week 5. Probably going to start having a look at him, see how he starts the season, and could be one coming in.
If he's not game week 1, he's game week 5, isn't he? And I think that's the thing. And the debate really is, I mean, you can look at Watkins as an option. He hasn't kicked a ball yet, but Villa's fixtures are decent, and he's probably going to start anyway. Havertz, the fixtures are a bit not sure too, but Tony's only just come back. Jackson is Jackson. I mean, what Jackson are you going to get every week? Who knows? Finish the season well, to be fair. Mateta might be back. Darwin Gakpo rotation. Jesus didn't score. Alvarez is gone. Holland and Xerxes, obviously, Holland's injured. You just get all the way down this list. And you obviously get to Fulkrug, who's new to the league. Cunha's got a knock as well, apparently.
Well,
if it's not
terrible fixtures as well.
Oh yeah, terrible fixtures. You are right, and they've just lost Neto, so you won't want to debate. Anyway, Baz. To be fair, you look at Visser for Brentford, maybe.
Visser or Wood would be the one, or Muniz. They're your three. They're your budget ones that you're talking about, or your João Pedro. Because
João Pedro, I was going to say, do you chuck João Pedro in there? Those are the 4 that it's between, isn't it? Really. Now, Awani, he is nearly fit.
Yeah, it came on the other day.
So Wood is going to start, but Awani, he's probably going to end up taking that spot off him, which is why I'm a bit put off Wood. I see got 131 points last year. I mean, Chris Wood just delivers 10 goals a season every season when he's fit. Honestly, he's clinical. He's just a solid striker. So he's not a bad third option. João Pedro seems to be one of the main picks in this new Brighton team. And Muniz has got good fixtures as well as he goes on little streaks. So, Baz, here's your list. You've just said it. If you're going to go, because I think we're all on the Isak Haaland train. If your third striker isn't Watkins Solanke, then which one of these is it?
Wood.
No debate?
Well, I just like him as a player. He's complete centre forward. He can mix it up. He can run channels. He's not the quickest, but when he gets moving, he can shift. And he gets in places where he can score. He could have scored a handful against Newcastle. I think he hit post, but he also scored as well. He just gets in them areas where he's gonna score, and it's just behind him is Visa. I think he looks a good option as well. Tony might be leaving, might not. We're still up in the air about that one, but I think he'd be another good one. I'm unsure about Muniz. I think is he going to be a one-season wonder? That's my only problem on him.
See, my gamble's probably João Pedro. And I know it's because he's got a terrible start to the season with 3 fixtures. I wouldn't play him in him anyway. I don't know, just the third cheap striker. I don't know, maybe he's too.
What's the other cheapest then? What else have we got there? There's not any more, is there? Under that?
No, they're all. None of these are an option. Less really.
Bro,
I mean, you've got Delap. I mean, Bray plays, but I'm sorry, Jackson.
Edouard maybe.
Edouard's going to start the season.
Yeah, but.
Well, Scott thinks Edouard's basic. I think Scott thinks he could play instead of Edouard.
Edouard's terrible. The whole Palace squad's terrible.
I did like Mope at Brentford, but obviously for Everton it's slightly different kettle of fish.
No, for me it's got to be Broja. He's going to rip up the under-21s league. Right, he's going to be incredible. It's training with the under-21s, isn't he?
Yeah.
I went João Pedro, and I'm gonna surprise you. My thought process was exactly the same as yours. I was like, not got a great start, but I'm not going to play him anyway. So he's only going to be on my bench as my first sub. And I think he's just the best player out of all them, and he's the cheapest. So it kind of made sense to me. I
How many
hate
How many of his goals were penalties though?
It don't matter. Goal's a goal. It's fantasy football.
You could argue with Palmer.
That was a penalty. Let me only give him like one point. So couldn't give a crap, Baz.
I think the problem with João Pedro is that his inconsistency of starts last time and his injuries and stuff. Like, you know, no one's saying he's going to set the world on
again
fire.
With the five subs, he's not going to be sat there until a wild card. He's going to probably sat there. Oh, he's not started. Or give it a couple of game weeks then, and then I'll look at getting someone else in. It just makes that so much easier this season.
He just doesn't have Europe this time. Kind of makes a difference to me as well. Let's do it, Scott. This is your draft.
It's changed a lot, John, this podcast.
Joke.
Scott, just quickly read it out for what it was and then tell us what you've changed already.
Cool. So yeah, Flecken and Henderson goal. We talked about them earlier. They rotate really well and pretty cheap. Saliba, well, I'll go through my thought process when I put this together in the space of 5 minutes yesterday before I went on clubs. Saliba, obviously Arsenal solid at the back. Toss up between him and Gabriel. Just went for Saliba. Pedro Porro, really good attacking wise. I think Spurs are going to have a really good season as well. Barco, saw a lot of noise about him, so looked into it, and he's obviously played a lot, and he's done really well. And he's cheap. Happy days, 4 million. He's going to be in loads of teams. Trent, I wanted a Liverpool asset, and then, as you can see, I don't have Salah at the moment. Saka, really nice fixtures to start the season. Obviously, solid last season, did brilliant. Gordon, fixtures are amazing. Rate him as a player, didn't play a lot in the summer, so he'll be fresh. Garnacho, I still think is really good value for what he is, and he looked good when he came on Community Shield. Smith Rowe, again, I think he's going to be like, who's his mate in the field? Oh my God, I've totally gone. Pereira. Yeah, Pereira, yeah. So I think he's going to do similar to what Pereira did when he went from Man U to Fulham, or Man U by somewhere else. Yeah, I think it's going to be similar to that. I think he's a class player, and I really hope he stays injury-free because he's had a rough couple of seasons. Haaland, Isaac's Isaac. And Cucurella, I think, was pretty decent value, and he really impressed me in the summer. Rodgers, amazing value. I think he's a class player. And João Pedro, for the reason we just said. Can just tell you really quickly the changes I've made. 2 keepers the same. I've still got Saliba in there at 6 million. I've now got I've still got Barco, still got Cucurella. I've took out Trent and Pedro Porro. I've now got Kwanzaa. You sold me on the Kwanzaa, and I've just slumped Dan Burn in there for now. Really good value, both 4.5. I have also got to make way for Mo Salah. So Salah's in. And Jota's in. You sold me on Jota, Alex. So they're both in now. They're both in, and Garnacho and Saka out. And that's it. That's what I've gone for. Good luck, me. Hope I win.
I think you've got it. I think you are going to win. This is the self-proclaimed guru's current draft. At the moment, I've got Raya in and then Valdemarson, so I've gone for the one solid goalkeeper. Again, I just wanted a piece of Arsenal's defence, and at the moment in this, I don't have any Arsenal defenders. So, but here's a debate whether I'm going to go for the rotation. Munoz, that Scott hates, Guardiola, Porro, Barco, and Howard Bellis. I've got Garnacho, Gordon, Eze, Jota, and Bailey, and then Haaland, Isak, and Solanke. So that's my front. It's very heavy in attack. Bailey, generally the rotation player. I'm very, very tempted to move off Eze and maybe try and downgrade Bailey and make him a more expensive midfielder, and then just faff around with the numbers at the back, really. But yeah, that's my team at this very moment in time, and it'll be Isak captain game week 1. So
yeah,
that's there won't be that many changes in this, but we'll see. There's a few that are quite nailed. Baz, we haven't got your design draft of where you're up to with your team, but do you want to share with us where you're at the moment with you?
Yeah, so I've gone for Flecken and Henderson, as we talked about for goalkeeper rotation early doors. I've gone for Konsa, Byrne, Mikalenko, Johnson, and Harwood Bellis. But I'll probably be changing Harwood Bellis for Barco. Midfielders: Hudson-Odoi, Eze, Son, Salah, and Rogers. And then front three: Haaland, Isak, and Wood. So,
Big.
Nice. Yeah, it's big. And it's what I love about this season already. There's just differences in how you can piece people together. I love it. Let's I've got on this twice. I've got this on twice. Player manager predictions. Let's go. I wanted to touch on some predictions now for the actual Premier League season. So let's go on to let's do differentials first. Let's do this because we are talking about these sorts of players anyway. Now I think Jota's not under 5% anymore.
no, he's 7.
He was under 5. He was under 5 2 days ago.
Night, yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was literally last night. I looked
Yeah.
2 days ago. He was under 5. So Jota, and then I love Ben Brereton Diaz. I think he just delivers goals. I think he just delivers returns. So under 1%, I went for him. This is for our all of season. We'll be keeping track of these guys. Baz.
I've gone for Doku. As you can see there, keep quiet about him. He's my little secret at 3%. I think he's going to shine. And I've gone for Carvalho under 1. He's obviously going to move to Brentford. I think he's going to do big things there at Brentford. So yeah, I've gone for Fabio Carvalho.
I absolutely love your picks. Like Doku is like a solid, strong, really good pick. Carvalho is like you've just put 2 dice in a cup and seen what's come out, mate. Like that one, it's brilliant, isn't it? Like I think the Doku shout's fantastic, and Carvalho, you could be having everyone's pants down, or he might not even play. You just don't know, do you? Talking about people that might not even play, now Pedro Neto signed Scott, man, at under 1%.
Yeah, I just thought it looked class last season. Towards the back end, I thought he was Chelsea's best player along with Palmer. And I think he's still got good value, and he was performing in an underperforming team, although Chelsea did go a bit stronger towards the end of the season. It was pretty close. I know he put Somerville in there. I had something about him. I think he's going to have a really.
I'm really interested. Is it because he's gone to your team, or is it? Or is this something you've seen in Somerville that you really like?
He played a season, wasn't he, last season? Like he's not bad, is he? Like, but
no, his numbers are amazing.
He does impress me, and I have watched him live a couple of times as well, and his movement, and he's quite electric. So I think he's one to look at, like one to keep an eye on. I think he can do bits this season. And then my boy under 5.
Your boy.
Come on. I loved him in the Euros. I love banging on about him. And now he's here. He's gone to my team, West Ham. They've absolutely had a nightmare with number 9s for like 20 years. So we're due one. I don't think they've had a good one. Antonio's on my right. Prior to that was with Dean Ashton. So
God, Dean Ashton.
I know, R.I.P. What a player until he obviously got injured. So yeah, I'm backing him. I think he can be he's going to be a handful, isn't he? Like we saw him in the Euros. He's going to be a handful. So
it could either be a Dean Ashton or a Scamacca.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. Yeah.
It's for Scamacca. Nice, like those. We'll be keeping an eye on those throughout the season. Let's have a look at our player and a manager predictions. So obviously we all had Haaland as top scorer because that's just classic. However, Isak, I think he's going to have his big season this year. Baz, Mr. Salah.
Yeah, Mr. Salah, I think as we all know, he's going to be there or thereabouts. So yeah, I think potentially probably his final season at Liverpool, and I think he's going to turn the screw and be consistent as ever.
And Mr. Solanke for Scott. You're not waiting to see on this guy here.
No, I want it to be a bit different. He's obviously going to walk, might not start the first 1 or 2 games, but then I think he's going to be starting every single game from then. And he was only not going to start because he's very new to the team. I think he's got potential to blow up this season. He's also got potential to score like 5 goals.
Well, I've got him down as the best signing. You've got Archie Gray. You love the Leeds signings, don't you? The players that Leeds have sold. You need the Leeds fans watching this. That's all you do.
A little bit, yeah.
That's such a troll move. I like that. And Smith Rowe for you, Baz. I like that. We're looking for the best young player. I've gone Saka, but you two have both gone for Man United players. which is Garnacho Meno. I like that. Player of the season, I went for Rodri, boring pick. And you went for Salah, and Scott went for Foden, very boring choices. And the sack race, me and Baz have both got Maresca out first. Scott, you've gone for Nuno. Is that just to be different again, or do you actually think he's going to go?
I just hate Forest. I think
Forest,
I mean,
Palace.
yeah, I hate them all. No, I mean, they ended the season. Correct me if I'm wrong. Horrendously last season, and they just stayed up, didn't they? In the end, I can see them really struggling this season, to be honest with you. And I think they play pretty poor football. And I quite like Nuno when he was in the Premier League before. But I think they've got a crazy chairman as well, so he's up there with Chelsea.
Before he turned his back on you and went to Forest. Final, we're going to go for our league predictions. And I've got City to win the league, shock. And so have you both, obviously. And then we've all got Arsenal second. I think the interesting thing is that I've got, me and Baz have got Liverpool third. Scott, you've got Liverpool fourth. And Baz, you've got Spurs fourth. And Scott, you've got Spurs third. Third for Spurs. You're back in the Solanke, back in Ange, back in the lot. You think?
Second season for him, yeah. I think you've got. I also looked at the other teams like Liverpool with a new manager, not brought any players in. They're going to take some bedding in. Man United, they brought players in and he gets injured. So whatever to that. I mean, I think it's still going to be. I think it'll be close. I think they'll be sniffing. And Chelsea's just Chelsea. I think if Chelsea kept the manager, I might have been putting them in the top four, but they're just idiots. So I expect Spurs to have a. I feel like Spurs are going to be in a title race for like March.
Nice. I love that as a shout. That's brilliant. I love those sorts of shouts. Yeah, I've got Man United fourth because I'm deluded and biased. Europa League for Spurs and Newcastle. And I think Chelsea will have a weird, horrendous start and end up managing to scrape seventh. Baz, you've got West Ham in seventh. You haven't got Chelsea even in the top seven.
I just think Maresca's going to struggle early doors. With all them players coming in, he's not going to. He's going to be a bit like what Poch was. It was like, who's going to play him? Who's going to be him starting 11? He's got. I think he can pick 11 goalkeepers to start his team. So, yeah, I've gone for West Ham because, as I mentioned, they've won the transfer window. They got linked with Bissaka, Wan-Bissaka. If he doesn't come in, apparently they're linked with Trippier as well. So that'd be a great sign if they can get him. So yeah, I've gone for West Ham because of that reason. The only problem is if Paqueta gets banned, how are they going to replace him? Is Somerville going to step up and be that man like Paqueta was? So yeah, I think I just fancy West Ham. I think Scott's converted me to the Hammers.
The interesting thing for us to point out here is that none of us have gone for Villa to play in the Champions League and remain in Europe at all. So basically to do what Newcastle have done. Yeah. Any reasons for that, Scott? Any other than just the fact that you think they might?
Yeah, I think
fixtures, or
they're not used to it. They're not used to being in Europe and balancing that hour. And I think Douglas Luiz is going to be a massive miss for him as well. I know they brought Anana in, just don't think he's in the same level. I was very close to Newcastle and West Ham as well. I think for the other table I predicted, I have actually put West Ham in coming seventh. Actually, it's that close.
Interesting with how the man. I just feel like Newcastle I feel like they'll do well this season, but just, the back of your mind about now the management structure has changed above how's it going to go? We had our hot take, our outrageous shouts we wanted to mention as well, and I think that at least 5 managers will be sacked by the 1st of January. That's what I think will happen. Baz, yours was. As
you can see there, Wolves getting relegated. Lost some key players. Neto's gone. Kilman's gone. I think if Dawson or one of the defenders get Totti or someone like that gets injured, I think they're going to be very weak at the back. And striker-wise, if Cunha gets a knock, I don't think they can get the goals that's needed to stay up. So for me, Wolves down. I said that last year as well.
Scott, your hot take?
I believe it was Villa to finish bottom half. Basically, the reasons I've just given. I guess Spurs being in the title race till March is a bit of one as well.
I think that's brilliant. Forest to go down and Leicester, even with a points deduction, to stay up for both of you. Interesting.
Just think the experience of Cooper, I think he'll get him through, and he knows how to win games ugly. So for me, I think that's why I've picked Leicester, and I think Ipswich. Hopefully they can do a Luton, but do one better. But I can't see it. And Southampton play too expansive, and I think they're just going to get caught too much with obviously Russell Martin. I don't rate him as a manager. I didn't really like him at Swansea, but then obviously took the step and got promoted. But I think he had obviously a good wealth of players. So for me, I think they'll struggle as well. But I think Leicester will do the business.
You say points deduction, nothing official yet though about it, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
They're looking about 4 points or something like that.
Yeah, I honestly, I bet Leicester to be comfortable. I think they went down with a Premier League team, and I think I agree with Baz. They're in a better position to stay up, having Cooper in and Raska.
Yeah, I agree with the Cooper situation. I just think they'll get a points deduction from what I've read. So I think they'll really struggle. It could be anything up to 11. That's the thing. So
sure, this has got to be announced before the Premier League start.
No,
Probably halfway through or something like that.
October or something. I can't remember what the deadline is for it. Something stupid. But the point is that it can come at any time. So thank you, Barry. I know you have
no
to.
worries. I need to shoot now. So thanks all, and good luck everyone in the season.
Right.
There is. We've got only a couple more things to mention anyway, Scott. We've basically got captains and league codes and this, that, and the other. We'll do our differential draft another time anyway as well. So we'll have that all put up, and that'll still be a part of what we do this season. We just don't want the podcast to go on too long today. And then we'll have our own FPL Challenge League between us as hosts. So that's be something else that we're going to refer to this season as well on the podcast. The FPL Challenge is something that takes place every single game week, and it's a different thing every week. And they've started doing mini leagues this year, so that's exciting for us. I think this week it's your best unlimited 5-a-side team, and at this very moment in time, I'll just click on mine while I've got it. I've got Riot and White because I think they'll keep clean sheets against Wolves. Salah, Son, and then Isak. And at the moment, Salah's my captain, but that'll be on Isak. Might as well make him captain whilst I'm here now. So that's what we'll do, and we'll have a little league between us, and we'll talk over that during the season. Let's do captains for game week 1, Scott, shall we?
Let's do it. I just realised you can change your formation. I was like, how have you got Son and Salah in?
I love that from you. Fixtures, deadlines. Friday, 6:30. Don't forget it. Man United at home to Fulham for us to be top of the league after game week 1. The early kickoff is just in loving memory of Jurgen Klopp, is Liverpool at 12:30 on a Saturday away at Ipswich. Arsenal, Wolves, Everton, Brighton, Newcastle, Southampton, Forest, Bournemouth, West Ham, Villa, and then you got Brentford, Palace, Chelsea, City, Great Super Sunday, and then Leicester, Spurs on Monday Night Football. I currently have my money on Newcastle at home to Southampton and going for Isak. Scott, Salah, Haaland.
Mine's on that. It's a tough one. I can't get away from Isaac, to be honest with you. I think at home to Southampton. I'd be worried. I'd be wary about going away. I think away against the newly promoted teams always tough first game of the season. I think I always say it. So I'd be worried to go on Salah. Not that worried, but I'd be a little bit worried. And then Chelsea away, regardless of what state they're in, you got to think they're up for that first game of the season, Chelsea. So again, going to be a tricky one. I think it's fairly easy to go on Isaac this week, or maybe punt early and go Gordon. That's the one for me. Maybe if you want to be a bit different, a Garnacho at home to Fulham, 8 o'clock again. Surely Old Trafford's going to be bouncing on Friday evening, but yeah, and Salah is also the other kickoff on a Saturday, and we know that never.
It'd be interesting to keep an eye on the trends there actually as well, won't it? Yeah, I think, and if you, again, let's think about a game. If you're going to be watching football this weekend, remember to enjoy FPL and link it with enhancing your watching football experience. So if you're going to be watching one of the games, then you might as well have a captain in it. And I don't think I'll be watching any of the games this weekend, to be honest. So other than maybe Man United on Friday. So yeah, but we will see. League code. If you've got it this far, you deserve it. November Alpha. That's NA7543 to join the podcast league. That's NA7543. Excited to get started with this league. We do shout outs.
I've just looked at the entrance as well. This must be a record number of entrants coming in this year for the podcast league. Bloody hell.
No, how many's in?
2 full pages.
Is there? Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. And we do weekly shout outs, weekly manager of the weeks, manager of the months, and then we do obviously the cup towards the end of the season. And it's just really exciting. It's what it's all about, really. Playing in those mini leagues, being part of a little community, and just really enjoying the game. So really hopeful that you guys can join in if you are listening to it as well. I think that wraps it up, Scott, for now. I think we've done an hour and a half there. I wanted to try to keep it under an hour, and that was impossible with all the content, but we managed to keep it under an hour and a half. So it gives you a chance to digest it before Friday. Don't forget to like the video on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to give us 5 stars on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from. Also, subscribe there so you get the little alerts which pop up when we do a new podcast. Don't forget to follow us on social media platforms, all of our pod, all of our P, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Good luck with the new season. I'll put our drafts up. We'll have some differential draft stuff. We'll try to fill the socials a little bit this week to get some bits and bats up there. And Scott, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Pleasure's all mine.
And thanks ever so much for everyone for watching and listening. And good luck with the new season. And we will catch you next week. Bye for now.